What's up, everybody? Alex from TwinGamingTV back with another MLB The Show 17 video, and today I'm bringing you my roster predictions for tomorrow, July 13th. The roster update is actually on Thursday instead of Friday this week. I think it's because of the All-Star break and no games going on, anything like that, so I think they're getting it done a day earlier. Now, you guys always show me a lot of love on these roster update prediction videos, and even though my predictions might not be the best, but I have a serious challenge for you guys. You guys are not ready for this. So we're currently at about 6,800 subs, about 200 away from 7,000, and I have a pretty steep challenge for you guys. So I promise you guys a 150 pack opening. That's coming soon. I have 60k subs right now, and I just need to sell one of my players, and I'm at 150k, so that's perfect. But I'm gonna throw in an extra 50 packs if we can get to 7,000 subscribers by the time the roster update comes out, and we're about 200 away. So I think you guys can do it. But so that 150 pack opening is going to be going up to a 200 pack opening if you guys can get me to 7,000 subscribers by the time the roster update comes out tomorrow. But wait, there's more. I sound like an infomercial right now. We're gonna bring it to a 500 pack opening. But the 500 pack opening, guys, that is going to be an absolutely crazy goal. The 500 pack opening, I feel like there's no way you guys can hit it unless you guys go absolutely crazy. That's gonna be just an unreal goal, and that's gonna be 10,000 subscribers by the next roster update. So a week from Friday, when that roster update comes out, if we are at 10,000 subscribers by the time it comes out, I will be moving it to a 500 pack opening. And I know it's a super steep goal. It's probably out of reach, but I just kind of wanted to bring it up just because it's a lot of subs, man. It has to be a pretty big goal for a pretty big amount of subs. That's 500,000 subs, so I'm gonna obviously have to drop some of my own money on the game as well to make that happen. So if you guys can give me a little bit with the subs, I'm gonna be giving you a little bit with that 500 pack opening. It's a long range goal, but like I said, if we can reach 7,000 by the time this next update comes out and 1,000 likes on this video, then we're gonna be moving it to a 200 pack opening, and then the extended goal, the 10,000 subs by the time the next week Friday roster update comes out. Then if we reach 10,000 subs by then, it's a 500 pack opening. So I have a reasonable goal and a crazy goal, and I just thought it would be kind of fun, a little bit of a challenge for you guys. I'll probably mention it in a lot of my videos until then, but either way, we're gonna go ahead and get into this update. I just have about 30-45 seconds more stuff I want to say just to clarify some things about it. Last week I went a little bit overboard on my predictions, so this week I was a little bit more conservative. There's obviously guys I left out, especially when it comes to downgrades. I usually focus on upgrades. This week we have a few more downgrades than normal, but there's obviously guys I didn't get to. There's obviously predictions, at least one probably, that I'm probably gonna have wrong or just not enough, you know, stuff like that, or maybe too much. So definitely let me know. Comment right now players you think deserve an upgrade, what team they're on, what overall they are, what overall they need to be, maybe what stats need to be upgraded, stuff like that. Just let me know down in the comments below. You guys did an amazing job of that last week, so I'm hoping you guys can do it this week and help me out with my roster predictions for next week in case there's ones that don't come true or that need to happen or that I didn't pick myself. With all that being said, though, let's get into the predictions. So we go from pitchers then to catcher, first base. So it's pretty much just how the positions go when you're making your lineup on Diamond Dynasty. So we're starting off with the starting pitchers, and the first guy we have is Corey Kluber. This week I'm giving him a +2, up from a 92 to a 94 overall. This season he's averaging 6.6 hits per 9 innings and nearly 12 strikeouts per 9 innings. So I definitely think he deserves a boost to those hits per 9 and Ks per 9 stats, and I think those two upgrades would make him get that +2 up to a 94. The next guy we have is actually our first downgrade of the week, and that's going to be Johnny Cueto, starting pitcher for the Giants. He's at a 90 right now, and I'm going to give him a -2 this week, down to an 88 overall, dropping from diamond down to gold. This year he's giving up more hits than last year. He's striking out less people, and he's also walking more people, so I think he needs to get a decrease in that H per 9, the hits per 9 stat. The K per 9 needs to go down a little bit, and then the balls, the walks per 9 needs to go down a little bit as well. Those three downgrades combined, I think, would drop him down to gold, 89 or 88, whatever it is. I'm giving him a -2 down to an 88. I just think he's really not pitching as well as he did last year and doesn't deserve that diamond status anymore. Next up, we have starting pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers, Alex Wood, an 86 overall. This is a guy a lot of you guys told me about. I have him getting a +2 this week, up from an 86 to an 88 overall. So his hits per 9 this season, he's at 5.6. So dude, a 70 with 5.6 hits per 9 innings this season definitely needs an upgrade right there. there. He's walking and not a lot of people, but like it's not that much more substantial than last year. So I think you could see a small increase into the walks per 9 stat. And he's also giving up less home runs per 9 innings this year, and he hasn't had that stat upgraded this year, so I think you could get that one a little bit as well. Our fourth starting pitcher is actually our second downgrade. So first 4 picks, and we already have 2 downgrades, and that's going to be Aaron Sanchez for the Blue Jays. I have him going from an 85, getting a -1 down to 84, dropping from gold to silver. He's giving up 2.5 more hits per 9 innings this year, 1.5 more walks per 9 innings, almost 1.5 more home runs per 9 innings, and then 1.3 less strikeouts per 9 innings. However, it's only been in 6 games. That's why it's a small downgrade. I just think he deserves a little bit of a downgrade because he hasn't been pitching super hot compared to last year, but it's a really small sample size, so I don't think it should be a substantial downgrade. Next up, we have Justin Verlander of the Detroit Tigers. He's currently an 88 overall, and I have him getting a -2 this week down to an 86 overall. Not quite dropping down to gold. I don't think he deserves that, but 88 down to 86, -2. He's giving up 2.5 more hits per 9 innings this year, 2.1 more walks per 9 innings, and 2.6 less strikeouts per 9 innings this year compared to last. So I don't think he's deserving of that high gold, but still deserving of a gold. I'm giving him -2 down to 86. Next up is our last starting pitcher pick for the week, and that's Luis Severino of the New York Yankees, and he's currently an 82. I'm giving him a +1 this week up to an 83. I think you could see a boost in the hits per 9 and home runs per 9 stats, just a little bit, but enough to get him a +1 from 82 to 83. Next up, we have the relief pitchers, and the first guy we have for the relief pitchers is Dellin Betances, and this is one that I have labeled iffy. I have him getting a -1 from 90 down to an 89 overall, and the only thing that I can see them downgrading, everything else is pretty much good as it was last year. He's pitching well, but the only thing is his walks per 9. He's averaging 8.3 walks per 9 innings, and the average between the last 2 years, he was only averaging 3.9 walks per 9 innings. So it's over doubled, man. It's more than doubled in walks per 9 this year. So I think that that attribute needs to be lowered a little bit. I mean, it's not super great. It's 51 anyways, but I think if you lower that you could see a downgrade from him and going from diamond to gold, but I don't really think it's super likely. I just think it's a possibility. Just kind of depends on how much they lower the walks per 9 stat for him by. Next up is also our last relief pitcher pick, and that's going to be Pat Neshek, 82 overall relief pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies. He's currently an 82 overall. I have him getting a +1 up to an 83 overall this week, and he's been pitching really well, but it's not like a lot better than previous years. I feel like his stats match how he's doing quite a bit, but if you look closely, he's giving up a little bit more average hits per 9 innings than he was last year. However, his other per 9s, his strikeouts, his walks, and his home runs per 9, it's a little bit lower than last year, so I think you can maybe see an increase to those, which would maybe give him overall a +1 increase just if you combine all those, and maybe get him +1 up to an 83 overall. Now we're on to the closing pitchers, and we have like 5 or 6 guys here at the closing pitcher, so it's not a huge prediction list, but it's quite a bit, and we're starting off with Wade Davis, 91 overall closing pitcher for the Cubs. I have him getting a +1 this week up to a 92 overall, and this season he's averaging 1.5 less hits per 9 than last year and 3.1 more strikeouts per 9 innings. So you see a small boost to that hits per 9 stat, and I'd say a pretty big boost to the strikeouts per 9 inning stat. I think you could see a boost to both of those, which gives him that +1 up to a 92 overall. Next up, we have Roberto Osuna, a closing pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays, currently 88 overall. This week, I'm giving him a +1 up to an 89 overall. So his hits per 9 attribute is currently 88 in the game, and it has not been upgraded this year, but his average hits per 9 innings are 1 lower than they were last year. So I think you can see a small boost to that stat, and then it's the same with his home runs per 9. They have not changed that stat at all this year, and it's 0.6 lower than it was last year. He's currently sitting at half a home run allowed per every 9 innings. So I think you can definitely see a boost to the hits per 9 and then also home runs per 9, and that will get him that +1 up to an 89 overall. Next up, we have Raisel Iglesias of the Cincinnati Reds, closing pitcher for him. This week, I have him getting a +2 up from 85 to 87 overall. I could see him getting a small boost to his home runs per 9 stat, and then also I could see him getting a pretty solid boost to his hits per 9. Currently, he's sitting at 4.9 hits per 9 innings this season, and the last 2 seasons, it was 7.2 and 7.6. So I definitely think you could continue to see a boost in that stat, maybe high 80s, maybe even getting into the 90s, the low 90s for a possibility, but definitely into the high 80s. I can see him giving him then a +2 up to an 87. Now we have Justin Wilson, 83 overall closing pitcher for the Tigers. I have him getting a +1 this week up to an 84 overall. Not quite gold, but his hits per 9 is 5 this season and has not been upgraded at all. So I definitely think with only 5 hits per 9 innings, you can definitely see an upgrade from that 72 stat, especially considering that his hits per 9 was about 9.5 last year. So I definitely think he needs an upgrade there, especially because it has not been touched at all this season. And with that, I don't think it's quite enough to get him to gold, but I definitely can see a +1 increase up to an 84 overall. Next up, we have Corey Knebel. He's currently an 82 overall closing pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers, and I've been getting a +1 as well this week up to an 83 overall. So his strikeouts per 9 innings, you can see it's 95 for that. I think it personally deserves to be 98, maybe even 99. This season, he's averaging 15.9. That's nearly 16 strikeouts per 9 innings. I think you could easily see that up to 98. Honestly, I think 99. I just don't know if they would actually give him 99 for that stat. And then as well, you can see a boost in his hits per 9. It's currently an 84, and this season he's averaging 5.1 hits per 9 innings, while last year was 8.8. They've upgraded it a little bit this season, but I do think it deserves a little bit more of an upgrade, maybe 87, 88, because he's sitting at 5.1 for that this season. And the last pitcher before we get into our position players is our last closing pitcher. That's going to be Felipe Rivera of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Currently 82 overall, and this week I've been getting a +2 up to an 84 overall. Not quite a gold, but I think you can see an upgrade in his hits per 9 stat because he's sitting at 4.2, and last year it was 7.7. So I still think you can see a little bit of a boost in that, especially because if I remember correctly, he started the year out with 82 for his hits per 9. So I don't think it has been changed, and you know, it's a lot better than last year. So I think you can definitely see an upgrade in that. And then walks per 9, you can see a small boost, and then same with home runs per 9 innings. I think you can see a small boost to that as well. And overall, I think these upgrades are enough to get him that +2 up to an 84 overall, but not quite a gold yet. Next up, we have our first level changer from an upgrade, and that's going to be the catcher for the St. Louis Cardinals, Yadier Molina. I've been getting a +1 this week up from an 84 to an 85 overall. I definitely think you can boost both of his power attributes. So he's currently at 9 home runs this year, and last year he only had 8 total. So he's already at more home runs than last year with 6 home runs versus righties and 3 home runs versus lefties. So I think you can definitely see a small boost to those power stats. Not a lot, but I do think boosting both of those just a little bit will get him that +1 and make him a gold finally. And to close off the catchers, we have 2 downgrades. First off is going to be Russell Martin. I have him getting a -2 this week from 83 down to an 81. This season he has a 1.56 average versus lefties, and only 2 of his 9 home runs are versus left-handed hitters. So his contact versus lefties, I think it needs to be lower than his contact versus righties, and then his power already is, but because only 2 of his 9 home runs are versus lefties, I think you can see a drop from 59 down to maybe low 50s, high 40s. With those, I think you would see a -2 for Russell Martin from 83 again down to 81. And last but not least, we have another downgrade for the catchers. That's going to be Yasmani Grandal. I have him getting a -1 this week down from an 85 to an 84, losing that gold status that he earned around the beginning of June. And the reason he earned that, the reason he got that upgrade is because of a boost to his stats versus righties, his contact and powers versus righties. But ever since that upgrade, he just has not been hitting righties nearly as well as he was at the beginning of the season. So I think that drops him down back to silver if you downgrade those righty stats a little bit, giving him a -1 from 85 to 84. Now we're on to the first baseman. We're going to be starting off with Joey Votto, 91 overall first baseman for the Cincinnati Reds. This week I've been getting a +1 up to a 92 overall. I think you can see an increase in his power versus lefties and maybe his power versus righties. Last year he had 29 home runs, and he's already at 26 this season. And last year he only had 5 home runs versus lefties, and this year he's already at 8. And then last year he had 24 home runs versus righties, and he's already at 18. So he's on pace to hit more home runs versus righties, and he already has more homers versus lefties. So I definitely think you can see an increase in both of those power stats, a small increase in both, which would amount to a +1 increase in his overall up to a 92. Also, I think you could see a small increase in his vision. I think he's only struck out about a third of the time as he did last year. He has about a third of the amount of strikeouts, and we're a little bit more than halfway. So he's watching the ball a little bit better. He's always been an on-base machine, had a really good eye, but I think it's improved a little bit compared to last year. Next up, we have someone that I was kind of sad to put in the roster update this week, and that's because it's Miguel Cabrera. He's a 90 overall, and this week I'm giving him a -1 down to 89 overall, dropping from diamond down to gold. And his contact versus righties, I think definitely needs a decrease. He's batting 247 versus righties, which compared to 321 last year, I just don't think he's deserving of that 92 stat, especially, 247, man. I really don't think that deserves a 92 for the stat. And then as well, I think you can lower his power versus both sides. So he's only had 11 homers this year. I know he's been injured a little bit, and maybe hasn't been playing as much, but he's only had 11 home runs, and last year he had 38. So I think you could see a decrease to both of those power stats, and combined with that decrease to contact versus righties, I think he could get a -1 this week down to 89, dropping down to gold. Next up, we have Eric Hosmer of the Kansas City Royals, and this is going to be another level changer from an upgrade. I'm giving him a +2 this week from 83 up to 85, and this is mainly just because of how he's been hitting in terms of contact and batting average. So he's batting 336 versus lefties this year compared to 233 last year, and then his average versus righties is up about 30 points this season as well. So I think you can definitely see an increase of that contact versus lefties, and then a small increase in the contact versus righties, but I think the contact versus lefties deserves to be close to 80, which would, with those two contact stats being boosted, give him that +2, breaking into the gold category. Next up, we have Edwin Encarnacion, and this is a guy that I think could be a level changer, but this week I'm only giving him a +1, up from an 83 to an 84 overall. He started the year on as an 86, but I don't think he's going to quite be breaking into that gold category. So his average is the same as last year. He's doing better versus lefties and then barely worse versus right-handed pitchers. So I think you could see an increase in that contact versus lefties and maybe a decrease in contact versus righties. Probably not, though, but I definitely think you could see an increase in that contact versus lefties. But then on the flip side, I think he definitely needs a decrease in his power. He has 13 homers versus righties and 5 versus lefties, and he had 42 total home runs last year, and he's currently sitting at 18 this year. So he's definitely not on pace to hit 42 again. He's on pace to hit 30-something, but I think those power stats do deserve a little bit of a downgrade. That's why I don't think he's going to go gold. It's just I think there's some stats that need downgrading along with the ones that need upgrading. Next up, we have Justin Smoke, and this actually reminds me, Justin Smoke is our only bronze player in this roster update. The rest of the update I focused on, actually, well, we don't even have a comment. The rest of the update I focused on diamond, gold, and silver players just because I didn't have as much time as I wanted to. He's the only bronze we have in this update, and then we don't have any comments at all. So Justin Smoke, kind of lucky, but I knew a lot of you guys really thought he deserved an upgrade, and I did as well. I'm giving him a +3 this week, up to a silver, up to an 80 overall, 77 up to an 80, and I think he needs a huge boost to his contact versus lefties. He's batting 389 versus lefties. I think you can see that, and I think you can see his contact maybe in the 80s, all the way up from that 68. I think you can also see an increase in the power versus righties because it's nearly the same as lefties. It's 1 higher. It's 77 and lefties is 76, but he has 13 more home runs this season versus righties than he does lefties. So I think you can definitely see an increase to that contact versus lefties, but then the power versus righties, getting Justin Smoke up to a silver, +3 to an 80. And now we are on to the second baseman, and this is kind of where I started running out of time. So from here on out, you're probably going to see only 2 people, maybe 1 person per position. But for the second baseman, we're starting out with Jonathan Schoop. He's currently an 82 overall second baseman for the Orioles, and I'm giving him a +1 this week, up to an 83 overall. I think you can see a small boost in contact for both sides, and then also a boost in his power versus lefties. Now, I don't think these are going to be any huge changes, but because there's 3 things that I believe need upgrading, I think that's going to get him a +1 up to an 83. Next up is our last second baseman in this video, and it's going to be Scooter Gennett, 80 overall second baseman for the Cincinnati Reds. He's currently an 80 overall, like I said, and I'm giving him a +2 this week, up to an 82 overall. This season, he's batting 337 versus righties, and he has 14 home runs versus righties. So I think you can see a small boost in his contact versus righties, maybe up to like an 85 or an 86, and then power mid-70s, high 70s, because he has 14 homers already this season versus righties. And with those 2 increases, I think you can see an increase in his overall from 80 to an 82. Moving on to the third baseman now. The first third baseman we have is Justin Turner for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's currently an 88 overall, and a lot of you guys, a lot of people I've been talking to want him to go diamond, but this week I'm only giving him a +1 up to an 89 overall. He's batting .427 versus lefties this season, so I think you can definitely see an increase from that 69 contact versus lefties. I think that definitely needs a boost with him batting .427 versus him this season. However, when it comes to power, he only has 2 home runs versus righties this year compared to 22 last year, so he's not on pace to hit anywhere close to 22 homers versus righties like he did last year. However, he's had 8 homers versus lefties this year compared to 5 at the end of last year. So I think you can see a decrease in power versus versus righties, an increase in power versus lefties, and then an increase in contact versus lefties. So I'm getting a +1 up to an 89 just because of that downgrade to power versus righties. If he was doing well when it came to home runs versus righties, then I think he would maybe be getting that diamond upgrade, but I'm only having him get up to an 89 this week. Now our last third baseman is going to be Jose Ramirez. He just had a Player of the Month card, which is an absolute monster of a card, and this is a pretty good card as well. He's an 86 overall third baseman for the Cleveland Indians. This week I'm giving him a +2 up to an 80 overall, and I think you could see a boost in his contact versus lefties. He's batting .319 compared to .311 last year, and it actually got downgraded this year. So he's batting better versus lefties than he did last year, and his contact versus lefties has actually been downgraded this year. So I think you boost it up to what it was before. I think it was a 79 to start the year, and then maybe a little bit extra, maybe an 80 or an 81 for that stat. And then I also think you can boost his power a little for each side. He currently has 4 homers versus lefties and 14 versus righties compared to 4 versus lefties last year and 7 versus righties last year. So he's matched his home run total versus lefties last year, and he's doubled it versus righties compared to last year. So I think you can see a small boost to that power, maybe mid-60s or so, and then power versus lefties because he's on pace to hit a little bit more, low 50s, maybe 53 or 54. And with those upgrades, I think you can see Jose Ramirez getting a +2 up to an 88 overall. And now we are on to the shortstop, and actually our only shortstop of the video. And this is one of, or maybe the only diamond prediction we have this week. And Carlos Correa, I have him getting a +1 from an 89 up to a 90 overall diamond, breaking into the diamond category. So this season he's batting nearly 400 versus lefties and then about 300 versus righties, and then his home runs are the exact same as last year. So I think you can see definitely an increase in that contact versus lefties. He's batting nearly 400 versus lefties and about 300 versus righties. So I think contact versus righties might be good where it's at, and then lefties I think needs to be at least 80, maybe 83, 84, maybe even 85. And because his home run totals are the exact same as last year, I think you could probably see a little bit of an increase in his power. 82 seems pretty solid versus righties, but maybe an increase in power versus lefties and just maybe a boost to both of those. And with all those stats combined, I think you can see a +1 for Carlos Correa this week, breaking into the diamond category. Biggest thing for me though is that contact versus lefties. Batting 400 versus lefties, I think you could really see an increase in that, and then also a small increase in power versus lefties. So those lefty stats are really what I think is going to push him into the diamond category. Now we're totally skipping over left fielders. We didn't have a left fielder this week. That doesn't mean none of them are deserving, but I decided to do 2 center fielders instead of a left fielder and 1 center fielder. So we're going to be having Chuck Nasty, Mr. Charlie Blackmon, as our first of 2 center fielders getting an upgrade this week. Now this is a guy a lot of you guys wanted to see diamond. This is a guy I want to see diamond, but I'm only giving him a +1 this week up to an 89 overall. I think you can see a pretty big boost in his contact versus lefties. He's batting .326 versus lefties and then .315 versus righties. So I think his contact versus righties is good where it's at. But at the end of the year last year, he was hitting .330 versus lefties. And this season, like I said, he's hitting .326 versus lefties. And his contact versus lefties started out at 79 this year, currently sitting at a 72. So I think you boost that up to at least 79 because he's nearly at .330 and then maybe even more. But I think 79 or 80 is probably a pretty solid spot for that contact versus lefties. And he's also been hitting some dingers this year, but not like a crazy amount more than last year, a crazy amount that I think deserves upgrading. So I think you could maybe see a small boost in his power versus righties, but then I definitely think he deserves a small boost in his power versus lefties, maybe low or mid 70s. So I think he needs an increase in contact and power versus lefties, definitely an increase in contact versus lefties though. I think he deserves 78 or 79 because he started the year at 79 and he's batting 4 points lower than he was last year. And because it's not substantial upgrades, because they're just kind of small like that, I'm only giving him a +1. I'm not quite giving him that boost to diamond. Next up, for our last center fielder, we have a guy who plays for the Houston Astros, a team that's been doing really well. I think they have one of the best records in baseball currently, and he's a teammate of our diamond candidate for shortstop, Carlos Correa. This is going to be George Springer, and this week I have him getting a +1 up from an 86 up to an 87 overall. I think you can see an increase in his contact versus righties. It has not been changed this year, and his average is 40 points higher than last year. So I definitely think he deserves an increase in that contact versus righties, maybe up to low 70s or mid 70s. And then he's batting .345 versus lefties this year, so I think you can see a little bit of a boost in that contact versus lefties, maybe lower mid 80s for that. And I think his power versus lefties is pretty solid where it is, but I think his power versus righties needs an upgrade, maybe up to like an 80 or so, but just a small little boost of that because he has 18 homers this year versus righties, and he only had 17 last year. So he's already at more than last year, so I think he definitely deserves an increase in his power versus righties. With all those upgrades, so I think he's only going to get a +1, maybe a +2, but I'm giving him a +1 this week up to an 87, not quite 88 yet. Next up, we have the last position, and that's right field. We have two guys for right field, and we're going to start off with big old Aaron Judge, your home run derby champion for 2017. Now, this is a guy a lot of you guys want to see diamond. This is a guy that I want to see diamond, and I think this guy is going to be 100% a diamond card by the end of the year. But this week, I'm only giving him a +2, not quite breaking into the diamond tier yet, but +2 up to an 89 from 87 overall. Now, I'm going to tell you why I don't think he's quite a diamond yet. So first of all, his vision is 37. I think he needs a boost in that, maybe like to 40, anywhere in the 40 to 45 range. Now, he's still striking out, I think, about a third of his at-bats or so, whereas last year he was striking out half of his at-bats. Obviously, it's a larger sample size this year, but his vision is the exact same as it was last year, and I think you definitely need to see a boost in that because his strikeouts have gone down just a little bit. But that small boost in vision, I don't really think affects his overall. So where you're going to see an overall increase is his fielding. The fielding, I don't know if they really focus on it all. So if they increase his fielding, then I think he's easily going to go diamond. Just because of the increase I think he deserves in his hitting stats. But I don't know if they do fielding. The fielding is the biggest reason why I'm not giving him that diamond boost. But with his contact, you look at it, 69 versus righties, 74 versus lefties. He has a 345 average versus lefties this season and a 325 average versus righties. I really don't think that a 325 average is deserving of 69 contact and the 345 average is deserving of 74 contact. So I think you can see a big boost in both of his contact stats. I think they both need to be probably, I would say, contact versus lefties with a 345, maybe high 80s like 87, 88, and then contact versus righties 84 or 85. That's what I can see it as, just because his average is really well versus both of them. And with those, I think you would see a +2 to Aaron Judge. But if they decide to upgrade his fielding as well, then I think that's where he goes diamond. But with his contact that I see them giving him right now, I only see him in an 89 overall. I hope the game proves me wrong. I hope the update proves me wrong. I hope you guys rub it in my face that he does go diamond, but I'm only giving him a +2 this week. Last but not least, we're ending on a level changer, and that's going to be Andrew McCutchen, a right fielder for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I have him getting a +2 this week up to an 85 overall, going from 83 to 85, breaking back into that gold category. So he started at gold this year, and now he's finally back. He dropped down to silver, but now he's back to gold, and I think he deserves a little increase in his contact and power versus lefties. I mean, they're both pretty high right now, but I think they could both go up just a tad, and then I think you could see bigger boosts to his contact and power versus righties, because those are what they downgraded. The contact and power, I think, has stayed the same pretty much this year, maybe even got upgraded, but the power and contact versus righties is what got downgraded, so I think you can definitely see bigger boosts to those. If you look at his specific stats, he's batting 344 versus lefties, so I think that 80 contact is maybe even a little low. I think you could see 84 or 85, maybe even 88, because that's about what I gave Judge for nearly the same batting average. And then he's batting 282 versus righties. Now, I know 61, that might kind of correlate with a 282 average, but that's the stat they downgraded, and 282 is better than what he hit versus righties last year. So that's why I think you can see an increase to his contact versus righties. And if you look at his home runs, he has 7 home runs versus lefties this year and 11 home runs versus righties. He's on pace to hit more home runs than he did last year versus righties, and he already has more than he did last year versus lefties. So because of those two batting averages and his batting average versus righties being higher than it was last year, which is where he got a downgrade in, was contact versus righties. So I think you can see a boost to his contact versus righties, a boost to contact versus lefties, and then also a boost to his power versus righties and lefties, because he's already at more homers versus lefties than he was last year, and then he's on pace to hit more than he did versus righties last year, and that's a stat they downgraded as well. So I think he's picked it back up, and I think he's deserving of getting back into the gold category. That's going to be it for my roster update predictions. Again, you guys let me know down in the comments if there's anybody I got wrong, and of course, if there's anybody I got missed, let me know why they deserve an upgrade, what their overall is, what their overall deserves to be, why they deserve that, all that good stuff. Definitely let me know down in the comments below, because I, of course, did not get to everybody. And let me know what you thought about my predictions. The only diamond I had was Correa. I know a lot of people want Blackman, a lot of people want Turner, a lot of people want Judge. A lot of people just want a lot more diamonds than I had in my update. Last week, I went overboard, I thought, so this week, I kind of wanted to be more conservative, and I only went with 1 diamond this week, being Carlos Correa. I also tried to include stats and or reasoning for each player that I upgraded, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. that I definitely think you wanted to, because last week all I said was they're killing it this year, so they deserve an upgrade. That's the only reasoning I gave. So I hope these stats were able to back up the upgrades and predictions that I was giving and help explain my reasoning behind them. And before I let you guys go, I just want to remind you of the challenge that I talked about at the beginning. So if we can hit 7,000 subscribers and 1,000 likes on this video by the time this roster update comes out, then we're going to be adding 50 packs onto my already 150 pack opening. So that brings it to 200 packs. And then we have the reach goal. If we can hit 10,000 subscribers somehow by the next roster update a week from Friday, then I'm going to be making it into a 500 pack opening, adding 300 onto the 200 or 350 onto the 150 if we didn't hit our first goal. But that's only if we hit 10,000 subscribers by the time the next roster update on next week Friday comes out, which is, it's totally reach goal. It's crazy, but I wanted to have a fun little challenge for you guys where if you guys give to me, I'm giving a lot back to you with 500 packs. That's massive. 500,000 stubs that would cost. With all that being said, though, definitely let me know what you thought of my predictions, anyone I missed, all that stuff down below in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Let's try to get it to 1,000 so we can possibly add 50 more packs onto that, and then subscribe if you are new. I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out.